I would like to call to order the school board meeting of the Columbia Heights Public Schools Independent School District 13 for Tuesday, January 12th, 2021. If you're able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully you're able to tune in electronically and follow along with what's going on. We'll begin with a roll call, if you wouldn't mind, Laura.
Yes, I had to find a pen to write this down.
Forget our roles all changed.
Yes, that is correct. Lewis?
Here. Aye.
Here.
Sorry. I'm not used to this. I'm clearly out of order.
Mueller?
Here.
The Samurai? Granlund?
Here.
Severson?
Here.
Palmer? Here. And Superintendent Senvik?
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Our mission statement is creating worlds of opportunity for each and every learner. All belong, all succeed. And our core values are community, excellence, collaboration, integrity, respect, courage, and innovation. We'll begin by talking about the agenda approval, adjustments, announcements, and correspondence. First, we'll begin with the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. So moved.
Molly, second?
Second.
Second would be Lorian. Any discussion on the agenda? All right, get a roll call vote again, please, Laura.
Lewis?
Aye.
Mueller?
Aye.
Granlund?
Aye.
Severson?
Aye.
Palmer? Aye.
All right, agenda is approved. We'll go on to announcements. On January 18th and 19th, a Monday and a Tuesday, there will be no school for students. On January 19th, Tuesday at 5:30 p.m., there'll be a school board work session here in the community room and via electronic means. On January 26th, Tuesday at 7 p.m., there'll be a regular school board meeting here in the community room and via electronic means. And February 9th, which is a Tuesday at 7 p.m., there'll be a regular school board meeting in the community room here and via electronic means. Superintendent Stenvik, do we have any correspondence?
Chair Severson, members, there's no correspondence at this time.
All right, thanks. We'll now move on to communication of the board, and we'll start with citizen employee representatives. At this time, any citizen or employee may briefly address the school board. The board will listen to the brief remarks, ask clarifying questions, and if desired, request that the administration follow up. The board will not take action at this time on requests presented at this time. We're seeing nobody in the room with us. And again, if you're at home and you have questions or you would like to communicate with the board or Superintendent Stenvik, our email addresses are all available on the website, and we are looking forward to hearing from you with any questions, concerns, or comments. We'll move on to the consent agenda, which includes the personnel report and school board minutes from the December 15th and December 8th meetings. Can I get a motion for approval of the for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Laura, for a second?
Second.
Second, Molly. Any discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
I'm sorry, I had a little cough there. Apologize. Lewis?
Aye.
Mueller?
Aye.
Granlund?
Aye.
Severson?
Aye.
Palmer? Aye.
All right, motion carries. Consent agenda is approved. We will move on to discussions, reports, and information items, and we will start with reports from members of the board. And I will begin with Lorian today. Mary, just kind of listen to how this goes, and then you can, I'm sure you've heard it, but now you're here with us.
All right, since our last meeting, technically in December, I guess, right?
Wow.
Since you don't count the organizational meeting and as that piece, but I attended the high school conferences virtually. I also had a conversation with member Granlin as her mentor for this year and attended the organizational meeting last week.
All right. Let's move on to Laura.
Oh, and I was at the chair meeting too, sorry.
And chair meeting prior to this meeting, right?
I attended the organizational meeting last week.
All right. Molly.
Thanks, Maddie. I also attended the organizational meeting and the high school conferences virtually. Also had an opportunity to connect with a couple of the board members for the Community Engagement Committee. Lorian, you're included in that. We had some communications, and that is it. Thank you.
All right. Mary.
Okay, so since the organizational meeting, I've had an opportunity to meet with Vice Chair Mueller and Chair Severson. I've also reached out to the Fridley Mayor and City Council and had some back and forth about, our school district and the city, and working together there. I exchanged correspondence with Representatives Bernardi and Feist, as well as Senator Kunesh. I attended the policy subcommittee meeting tonight, and I also had an opportunity to speak with a lot of caregivers in our community, talking about the survey and what their thoughts are for this next quarter.
All right. Thank you. I also was at the organizational meeting with everyone else on this call, and the chair meeting prior to this meeting and this policy subcommittee meeting prior to that. I also, as mentioned earlier, had meetings with Member Granlin and I guess Member Larkin prior to the switch. I was just thinking about that, which is crazy, right? And then AMSD meeting last Friday where we had a legislative preview for their legislative platform, and other state representatives from the state legislature joined us for that meeting and got to hear from different educators, superintendents about AMSD's priorities, our collective priorities for this coming year. So it was actually really good. I'm sure the meeting notes are public, but we often get those meeting notes in other publications. All right, I think I got everyone, right? All 5? Yep. And then, so Superintendent Stenvik, do you have an update for us?
Yes, Madam Chair, I sure do. Last week, I'm going to focus on last week, met with the Tri-Metro Governing Board, which is our athletics and activities conference. So some really interesting updates there. Of course, lots of conversations and hopefulness about spring athletics and activities. One area of note is each year there is an arts festival done by the Tri-Metro, and one school district takes on that festival to be the host. And Brooklyn Center is planning a really incredible virtual conference or arts festival. So really looking forward to having our students participate in that.
Cool.
As Chair Severson mentioned, the AMSD meeting, in addition to those presentations by superintendents and legislators, we also had an appearance by Governor Walz and Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, who gave the superintendents and the folks on the call some words of encouragement and offered their support to public schools, which we appreciated. In addition, I have regular meetings due mostly to the pandemic. Superintendents across the metro area are meeting in different configurations. So AMSD superintendents meet weekly. Anoka County superintendents also meet to confer and share ideas. In addition, I met with the local representatives of our Local 710 Teachers Union. So representatives from the different buildings, particularly at the elementary level. And then really great conversations with various board members, and I thank you all for your time for those. That's it.
All right, thank you so much. We will move on to the early childhood family education and early childhood special education update with Directors Stunkel and Fry, it looks like, and some other staff. Tiffany Graham. I'll let you introduce all your folks. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
Thank you.
And here we go. Okay. Very good. Can you see the screen now?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Okay, so our early childhood and early childhood special education programs. I'm the director, Kristen Stunkel, Director of Community Education and Communications. Tiffany Grams-Farkas, who is our early childhood manager, will be presenting this evening. Dr. John Fry, Director of Special Education, and Marsha Walker, who is the Education Support Coordinator. This evening, as every evening, our mission, Columbia Heights Public Schools, creating worlds of opportunity for each and every learner, all belong, all succeed. This evening, you'll notice that all of our core values are going to be reflected in our presentation. This is an informational update only. There are no governance questions. And with that, I'll pass the floor over to Tiffany Grams-Farkas.
Our early childhood education programs include our early childhood family education program, our one-to-one visiting program, early childhood screening, pre-K programming, and our early childhood special education programs. The benefits of our early education programs include strengthening families by supporting parents and focusing on the well-being of our students and families, along with focusing on the partnership between home and school. And we also are preparing our families and our students for lifelong learning.
The goal at our family center is that families feel connected to resources and family center staff. Tiffany and I do a lot of work collaboratively with our teams of staff. This goal drives our collaborative professional learning community, or PLC work. For example, one of our family center PLCs includes our parent educator, our early childhood family educator, and our 2 special education early intervention teachers, Tiffany and myself. And we meet and work to really individualize support for families. We are working together, collecting and sharing community resources with each other. And those resources also include thinking about resources around mental health supports for our families.
And then one of our programs is our early childhood family education program, and this program provides parenting education and support for children's learning and development from children ages birth through 5 years. And this program really focuses on both parents and children, and we offer a variety of weekly classes along with drop-in activities, events, parent seminars, and summer programming. This year, we have been able to provide programming. We started off with hybrid programming, so we had smaller groups of parents and children, along with utilizing more spaces. And as this picture represents, we were able to offer programming outside in our Blooming Heights garden, and in that picture they represent a class that is making apple cider. So that was something that was very fun this fall. And our early childhood, we also this year have provided the hybrid piece through the end of November, and then we've been in distance learning since that time frame. We've offered virtual opportunities the entire school year, along with offering many materials and activities that families have been able to take home to provide that enriched learning experience. Our early childhood family education advisory council has been able to provide activities over winter break for our families, and we have virtual meetings monthly. There's plenty of opportunities in our early childhood family education program, and we have openings, and we welcome any families that are able to attend this program. One of our other programs is our one-to-one visiting and outreach programming. We have our parent educator who's able to provide one-to-one visits with families and really providing that support to parents, answering questions and providing strategies and really problem solving with our families. This is something that we have mainly offered for our early childhood programs, along with our elementary programming that our parent educator is able to meet with families via phone or virtually this year and has provided a few in-person visits. We've had a partnership with the Columbia Heights Library. Prior to the pandemic, we were at the library, and this year we've been providing a few connections virtually with families attending the library activities. We've had a partnership in the past with our police department in Columbia Heights and the city with the use of the Circle Terrace Community Building for our summer programming. And this past summer, we weren't able to provide that, but we are hoping to provide summer programming and have that resume this coming summer. We also have provided programming to our Grand Central Flats housing complex, and we've offered, prior to the pandemic, we were going out to the housing complex weekly and provided activities for families. And then this year we've provided activity bags and are offering one-to-one visits for families. Our early childhood screening program is another program that we provide, which offers a free developmental screening. And our goal is to screen children at the age of 3 years. Last year we screened 246 children, and we had about a third of the children. We had the use of interpreters, and we had 76 referrals that came from our screening last year, and you can see the breakout of the different areas of referrals. This year, our screening has been done by parent report only, so through basically distance screening, and that piece and we've screened about 66 children so far, and we're going to continue that. We're going to continue providing that parent report with families for screening. And then our pre-K programming includes both pre-K 4 and pre-K 3 programming. Our pre-K 4 programming is offered at the elementary schools and is under the direct supervision of the principals. And we offer full and half-day programming options 5 days a week. We currently have 180 slots. Last year we were running at 96% capacity. And then our pre-K 3 programming is offered at the Family Center. We have half-day options 2 or 3 days per week. We have 64 slots available, and last year we were running at 92% capacity. Both our pre-K programs are 4-star Parent Aware rated, which means it's the highest rating that we have prepared, that our programs are preparing students for kindergarten. And then all of our curriculum and assessment, the creative curriculum and the gold assessment, are fully aligned with our standards, our early childhood indicators of progress, which are the standards for early childhood. This graph on here represents the data from our pre-K programming last year, and we were able to collect data. Typically we collect data 3 times a year, fall, winter, spring, and last year we collected fall and winter, and we had seen growth from between fall and winter of anywhere from 20 to 39% growth in these different developmental areas. And what this represents is that in winter, so as of March of 2020 last year, we had 72% of our students were meeting or exceeding expectations in social emotional, 85% meeting or exceeding in physical, 72% in language, 79% in cognition, 80% in literacy, and 73% in mathematics. It was definitely on the progression of our students seeing that growth between fall and winter, and we would have seen continued growth between winter and spring. And then this year in our pre-K programming, we've offered both distance learning and hybrid. So our pre-K 4 programming has been a distance learning since the beginning of the school year, and our pre-K 3 programming offered hybrid learning through the end of November and then has been in distance learning since. We've utilized both the Seesaw and Zoom platforms for Heights from Home, and as you can see, we have some wonderful pictures of our pre-K 3 programming when they were in hybrid learning, and our pre-K 3 teacher teaching to children in person, also to children that were Heights from Home. And then something that's really fun is that something that I hear from our pre-K 4 teachers is just to see the work that pre-K 4 students are providing in the pictures when they send videos and of their work, and it's just something that's it's wonderful to see, and it's a heartwarming experience. And you can see that the smile from our pre-K 4 student in the middle there, sharing her work with everybody.
Chair Severson, members of the school board, Superintendent Stenvik, I have an opportunity to talk about the early childhood special education department and the staff. As you can see, that picture is pre-pandemic. We also added one of our new staff, Lauren Sullivan, there. But this is the staff of the early childhood special ed program. As you can see, we've got this photo includes our educational assistants, our special education teachers, our occupational therapists, and our speech and language pathologists. These are the individuals who make up the early childhood special education program that serves over 100 students here in Columbia Heights. A few things I wanted to share last year and that I shared with the special ed department and I'll share with you today is that they wanted to know that everybody, that they exist, they go into homes to provide services, and they've got a great connection with families. The other thing they wanted to share is that they're all over and part of all schools. They even have a high school in the office in room 206 if you happen to be in there. They're everywhere and they're supporting students. And I think what I'd like to just note about them is that they're the first faces that parents and students see when enrolling into Columbia Heights. And when the term special education is presented, the staff sets the tone for students' school experience and in developing trust with parents in Columbia Heights Public Schools and the special ed department. The ECSE staff provide support to students in their home, in the community, at local daycare providers, at Head Start, in the elementary schools, and at the Family Center. The ECSE staff work hard to ensure that all students who reside in Columbia Heights and South Fridley are found and provided with the education and support they need to be ready for the first day of kindergarten. And finally, the one quality I want to talk about that they exhibit a lot is grace. The staff below, they're gracious. They find grace with parents, caregivers that they work with each other, and with the students who they teach the skills with for the very first time. So I think the good thing here is that they're the first faces of what parents and caregivers and students see here in Columbia Heights as it relates to special ed. And now Marsha Walker.
So the way we learn about those student needs is through a platform called Help Me Grow Minnesota. That's where the majority of our referrals come from. For older children, we also get a high number of referrals that are identified through our early childhood screening. As noted on Tiffany's previous slide, last year there were 52 referrals just from our early childhood screening to our ECSE teachers. When we think about early childhood special education programming, you really think about two cohorts of children. So the first would be those infants to age 3. And I mentioned earlier about our professional learning community work, and that's really been identifying what we do and creating products that we can share with families about our work. And so these are some bullet points that the team created, just really identifying what is early intervention for those birth to 3 students. So services are provided in the child's and family's natural environment. The natural environment is where a child spends most of their time, such as their home daycare, grandparents' house, etc. During COVID, our service providers have not been going into homes or daycares, but they've been providing those services through virtual platforms. And also when it was warmer out, they might have done a backyard visit or met at a park. They may have even met at a routines-based errand, such as meeting at Aldi's and meeting the family there and doing some caregiver coaching around a routine with being out in the community. One thing that's different about early intervention is those services are provided year-round. And the goal with early intervention is to provide developmental strategies and caregiver coaching to support the child's growth and learning throughout those everyday routines. Our team works with the families and caregivers and their children to support them throughout their day. And part of our team's responsibility in early intervention is really thinking about service coordination, which is an active, ongoing process that assists and enables families to access services and supports. One of the things I'd like to say too is about our early intervention team is they're, like Dr. Fry said, they're a very strong team. Last school year, when we can intervene early with services, children may exit from special education services. And last school year, we had 22 students who exited before the age of 3 because they were meeting those developmental milestones and no longer needed those services. So the other cohort of students we think about is ages 3 to 5. And our service providers, like Dr. Fry said, provide services that are inclusive opportunities in our VBK 3 and 4 programming. We also have 4 sections right now of center-based programs that are offered at the Family Center. And then we also, like Dr. Fry said, support students in those community-based programs like Head Start or child care settings. Again, with early services like this, the potential of a child possibly exiting special education services when they receive what they need at a young age is high. And so last school year, we had 30 students who exited special education services before they started kindergarten. And so it's a really strong team, and there's some pictures there of our classroom. Thank you.
All right, I think we saw on the slide there's an opportunity for questions. Are there board members that have questions? And thank you for your presentation. I didn't say thank you. And for joining us tonight. I did not read the electronic, should I read this now, as long as what do you think?
Do you want to read it right before the next?
Sure, sounds good. If you have a question, just feel free to raise your hand or unmute. Mary, I see you unmuted there. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you very much for the presentation, and I really appreciated the data about the children that maybe started and were so successful that they didn't need to continue on with supports. I think that sometimes families can feel maybe a little worried about what this might mean, and instead I think it's a really great feeling of hope for the importance of early childhood. And I mean, that's my that's my specialty outside of here too. So I'm thrilled about hearing this. So thank you guys so much for all of your hard work.
Thank you.
Other questions? I guess I have one then. If a parent were interested in doing a distance screening, I'm imagining that has all sorts of challenges over COVID that exceed kind of the boundaries of this conversation. But thank you for continuing to try to find creative ways to get children ready for kindergarten. If parents are interested in a distance screening, how can they get in touch with you?
Great question. They can contact our community education office. They can either contact us by phone or they can email us, and we're reaching out to families too through our census data, our programming data. But yes, as long as they call our community education office or they can call me directly, we'll get them set up with a packet, and basically they take that packet and they complete that, and then again through parent report, and then after that's completed, then we reach out to them by phone and have basically a conference or a meeting with them to talk about the results and if there's any additional supports that we can provide for them.
And that information to reach you is all available on the website, I would assume?
Correct, yes.
And it's also in our community ed catalog that just went out last week.
I saw it in the mail. All right. Other questions? Can't see everyone, so let me know if I'm not seeing you or hearing you. All right. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate it very much. Before we go on, I'm just going to read the kind of the rules of engagement that we have been reading at the beginning of every meeting, but just in case people are new to this, due to the current federal and state emergency declaration, the Minnesota directive to residents to stay at home and the guidance about limiting person-to-person contact due to COVID-19 or coronavirus pandemic. This meeting of the Columbia Heights School Board is being conducted in accordance with Minnesota Statute 13D.120, or sorry, 021, meetings by telephone or other electronic means. School board members are reminded to mute their microphone or phone when they're not speaking, and the school board members wishing to speak should raise their hands or unmute, then wait to be recognized by the chair. The chair will determine the order in which board members wishing to speak will be recognized. When recognized, the board member should unmute the microphone or phone, speak, and then remute their device. All votes will be conducted by roll call, and each board member should wait until their name is called before voting. This meeting is being recorded, and access to this recording will be made available on the school district's website as soon as reasonably possible. Thank you all for putting up with that. We'll now move on to the learning models with Superintendent Stenvick.
Okay, Chair Severson, members of the board. Oh, sorry. Wrong one. There we go. This evening, we will be providing information on the learning model update for quarter 3. There are also some of the directors on the Zoom in case there are questions that they need to field as well. Our mission in Columbia Heights Public Schools is creating worlds of opportunity for each and every learner. All belong, all succeed. And we'll be hitting on all of our core values this evening of community, excellence, collaboration, integrity, respect, courage, and innovation. This is an informational update today. The school board approved the 2020-21 Safe Learning Plan, 4-phase plan back in August of 2020. If you all remember, just briefly, some of the guidance that we follow this year, this school year, for such a unique year, is Executive Order 2082, also the Safe Learning Plan, and planning guidance for Minnesota Public Schools. So following the governor's orders, also the Department of Education and the Department of Health. Many of you have seen this before, so the learning model phases for Columbia Heights Public Schools. There's 4 different scenarios there, and of course, regardless of where the school district is at or each individual school is at, families can choose. They always have the opportunity to choose Heights from home or distance learning each quarter at a time. So we do ask families each quarter if they would like to continue with that, or if we're able to have students on campus, we ask that as well. So here are the definitions of each of the 4 phases, and we're going to focus on, we're looking at, phase 2. We've been in modified hybrid for most of the school year. We've been in a pause, as you all know, for the month of December and into current times due to the surge in local cases and cases in Minnesota. But looking, so what might come next, right? So full hybrid, phase 3, the definition is that students would receive instruction both in person and from home. And then phase 4 would be, hopefully we'll get there as soon as possible, all students back on campus, right? So how do we transition between phases? So transitioning before phase, or 2 different phases, if the cases surge like they did November, December, we can really transition to a more restrictive or kind of go back on the dial at any time given the case rates. But if we're going to be opening up, then that will happen quarter by quarter. We will reevaluate the plan each quarter. We look at data weeks in advance and reach out to the community, students, parents, and staff. Of course, if there is a transition to a different learning model, we are allowed to use up to 5 instructional days. We're required under the current guidance to use some of those days. And that's for planning for staff who have not been on campus teaching. So we'll just get right into it. Quarter 3 starts February 1st, so we want to give families a few weeks in advance, or a couple weeks in advance. So we are following the guidance from the Minnesota Department of Health, Department of Education on the model, and based on our current case rates, we are able to be done with the pause and bring middle school and high school back in a targeted way. So those small groups of identified students that have needs, we'll be working to reinstate that model. And then looking at elementary, really turning the dial to that full hybrid or that phase 3. So we are required to do a rolling start. So that means start not with every grade level in elementary, but as you can see on the screen, we'll be starting with pre-K and kindergarten, so pre-K 4 and kindergarten in the elementary level. And we're also going to be having early childhood ECFE pre-K 3 for the 3-year-olds as well. So let's talk about some of the considerations that go into the decisions to move the dial, right? I think most people are aware that right before winter break in December, Governor Walz made an announcement at one of the press conferences that encouraging schools and letting people know that we can start with this new guidance to reopen elementary schools in this rolling start manner. So that was guidance that we received. Based off of that announcement, the Department of Health and the Department of Education on December 24th released updated guidance. So that Safe Learning Plan is updated frequently, and luckily we have weekly meetings with the Commission of Education and with the Department of Health, and we are on top of those regular updates and well informed. We've also looked at the numbers of families who are requesting Heights from Home quarter per quarter, so we really need to have a handle on how many students would potentially be in the building and how many students would continue Heights from Home full-time. We also are required to consult with our regional support team. So that's our local public health officials, and they tell us, in many ways what we can and cannot do, and provide very strong guidance. Anecdotally, I will say that I'm happy to report that our regional support team representative has expressed a lot of positivity for the Columbia Heights model in terms of the Safe Learning Plan, because as always, we aim to keep health and safety as a top priority for students, staff, and families. We also, as you can see in the lower level there, staffing capacity. Of course, we work very closely with our staff. It takes great teachers to run a school, but it also takes other staff. We have wonderful clerical and non-licensed staff and custodians. And so working with all of our different staff to see and to ensure that we're providing accommodations that they deserve. So our Human Resources Department really works closely with the staff who need those types of accommodations. And by accommodations, I mean, if they can work from home or if they need to work from home, then we accommodate that. We figure that out and we work with them. And then, of course, the COVID-19 data, the case rates. We are able to view every single day our localized COVID-19 data. So we look at Columbia Heights and Hilltop as a whole. We can look at Fridley as a whole, knowing though our district doesn't encompass all of Fridley, we can look at the surrounding districts and surrounding counties as well. So every 2 weeks, we are required to kind of track that data, and additionally, we look at it every single day in order to make those decisions. Speaking of our case rates, this is where we are at. So you can see that level. That middle column is for elementary students, and the far right column is for secondary or middle school and high school students. We are currently falling within the range of that 30 to 49, and we've been there for 2 collection periods, so that's, in essence, 3 weeks. We saw a dramatic spike in November and December of our local cases, rates that we were pretty blown away by, to be frank, very high cases. And we have seen a dramatic decrease in cases. So that's where we are currently. Again, every 2 weeks we set those, reset those, the collection and looking at the data and making decisions. But most of the districts are in the metro area are looking to have 2 consecutive collection periods at this level in order to open up. So for example, if we were still down in that 50+ range distance, we probably wouldn't be able to consider opening up as much as we are able to. And our public health officials and the Commissioner of Education and really recommend continuing just to stick with this state model. So there are a lot of factors for moving the dial. There are a lot of moving parts, and I just have to let you all know it's been an incredible collaborative decision-making process. There are so many things to think about. Of course, health and safety, and, you know, all of the different perspectives that we have and the expertise that we have. So first and foremost, you can see at the top of the list is equity. We want to ensure that we are having equitable access to opportunities for our students. Lessons learned from semester one. We meet regularly with other districts, and we've heard the difficulties that they've gone through, and we've shared and supported one another and brainstormed different ideas. Instruction. How are we able to continue to provide high quality instruction? And then really looking at consistency for students and families, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. Transportation guidance has changed. I mean, all of the guidance has changed since the beginning of the pandemic, right, and continues to. So we work closely with our transportation department to ensure that not only our students are safe, but our bus drivers are safe as well. Meals is a huge undertaking. We're so proud that our nutrition services are delivering meals to families right now. And so as we're able to bring students back on campus, we're also able to provide meals on campus. Staffing capacity, again, as I mentioned before, how many staff can we have on site at a time and how many are we accommodating? Local case rates. We've developed plans for if there's a staff case of COVID or a student case of COVID, what do we do if that happens, right? And so we've got a plan in place for that. We have a plan in place if people need to quarantine. And I just want to reiterate that if a case does happen, and it has throughout this school year, we have experience with this, we're required to contact the Department of Health and we register that there's been a case. Then they call our COVID coordinators and talk through the scenario. So it's really a case-by-case basis, the reaction. So it's not a one-size-fits-all in terms of quarantine or the reaction, but we do have those plans in place. We look at survey data from families, students, and staff. This year, another proud point, we've been able to provide technology, hotspots, access to internet, and we have launched a new service for technology that's in English and in Spanish with expanded calling hours. So it's the same phone number to call the tech line, but you may get a service provider and you may be able to make that phone call in Spanish. And then our facilities, we need to make sure, and we've been planning and making sure that we are safe for keeping distance, all the protective equipment, and on the cleaning regimens. All of these different categories we've been able to plan for each and every one because the school staff, the principals, nutrition services, the custodial staff, all of the different departments and schools have come together largely on a weekly basis to hone in this plan and make sure that we are crossing all of our T's and dotting all of our I's. So here is what we're looking at for a required rolling start. As I mentioned, there will be planning days, and you can imagine, for example, at North Park, it's a brand new school and many teachers may not have fully moved in yet, right? So there's that, but there's also the elementary teachers across the district have been collaborating and working together. So what we're looking at when we say hybrid, I just want to really clarify, when we say full hybrid, sometimes it comes to mind that, is it 1 day a week or 2 days a week? What we're looking at for pre-K4 and kindergarten to start is the kids who are choosing on-site learning would be on site for 4 days a week, and then they would have their same specialist day. So that one day where you have PE and art and music, that would still continue on that same day, but that day would be from home virtually, just like it is now. So, the 4-year-olds and the kindergarten students won't have to go back and forth to school. It will be 4 days a week on site for those who chose it, and the one virtual day, it's the same day. So second graders would be on Tuesday, for example. All right, so we're going to start small with pre-kindergarten and kindergarten. We're going to learn how to have students on site during this difficult time, and then analyze that process and make sure that we're ready for grades 1 and 2. I need to preface this with, we will continue to look at the case rates. If there is a surge, we may have to go more restrictive or turn that dial back. So we'll continue. So if everything goes well and the case rates stay low, then there would be planning days for teachers, February 22nd and through the 26th for grades 1 and 2. And those students and families who chose to on-site learning would be able to start March 1st. It really does take that much time with this rolling start model to be prepared and planned and provide the best quality education that we possibly can. So then again, you can see then the plan, if the cases go well and things are going all right, then we're hoping that the planning days for grades 3, 4, and 5, and that includes the LEAP classrooms, those planning days would be March 8th through 12th. And then on March 15, we would love to have those grade levels start on campus. Now, those planning days, that means kids will be at home like they are now, but they won't have the live teacher in front of them. We're looking at possibly having teachers do a morning meeting that day, but we also have developed choice boards, which are activities for kids to do during that time. So we don't want to leave families high and dry. We want the students to be able to have some things to do. So those are in place as well. All right. So things that are noteworthy for quarter 3. So some more specific details, right? For the students who are on site, who would come on site for on-site learning, it would be a little bit of a shortened day. This is for a variety of reasons, and one of them being we have contractual obligations with specific hours that we must fulfill. We would also consider that, so the pre-kindergarten, the 4-year-olds, and the kindergarten students coming on site, this is going to be their, largely their first time either in school or in school this year. So we're really excited to kind of develop those school rituals and routines, and so it'll be a whole new world for many of our youngest students. The kids who would come on site, we need to remember we're following the guidance, so masks are required and social distancing is required. So might look different from previous years, but everybody's doing their best and collaborating and following that guidance. For staff, some of our staff are in different roles, or their roles might shift in order to maintain those small groups. So, I said it before, we are starting small. So I don't want people to imagine that there's going to be, 30 students in a classroom. Think about small groups. And so we are allowed, and we will be utilizing some staff in different ways in order to have smaller groups. For both the students who are Heights from Home and those that would come on site, and again, this is for elementary, they may have a change in teacher. So as you can imagine, with about 50% of our students choosing to come on site and about 50% of our students, the other 50%, in Heights from Home, we will have some shifts in the class lists. And that can be tough for some kids and for some families, but it's very common during this pandemic year across the metro area and across the state of Minnesota. I mentioned already that specialist day would remain the same and would be virtual from home. And then just a reminder that we have coordinated across all schools the materials pickup. So if you have children or siblings in different schools, the parents can come on the same day to pick up that quarter 3 material, January 27, 28, and 29. Okay, let's talk about middle school and high school. We mentioned we're staying in modified hybrid based on the current case rates. The staff is focusing right now on planning for which of the priority 1 and priority 2 students they can bring back. So the student groups in terms of the priority really haven't changed since the beginning of the school year. So again, you can see here on the screen those different groups. So that will be that information will be forthcoming. Need to touch on athletics and activities. This week, activities and athletics started. They were allowed to start January 4th, but we were looking to have that 2 cycles of lower case rates in order to bring them on campus again. Our activities and athletics on campus have been very successful, but you know, we've also had a lot of outdoor sports. So we're taking extra mitigating factors and precautions to make sure that with these indoor activities and sports, they are as careful as they possibly can. Again, masks in the appropriate sports and sessions for that, and distance and small groups and etc. All right, so communication. Schools are working with their staff to make sure that all of the staff questions are answered. They've got, you know, they can submit a form and ask a question. They're meeting with their staff and developing school-specific plans. Tomorrow, and of course, other communication to the board this evening. Tomorrow, a district-wide communication will go out to all families to inform them of our learning model shift with those dates. And then after the district-wide communication comes out, then the schools will start communicating out. So the elementaries will communicate out first what their specific school plan is. So families who have students in elementary school, you can expect communication coming from your principal and or teachers this week with a lot more specific details. And then after that, if I would imagine parents still might have other questions. So really want to encourage families to take a look at the district communication that comes out tomorrow, take a look at the communication from your school, and then please ask additional questions as they come up if you have questions. So again, we've got a variety of methods of communicating, whether it's phone calls, emails, and via Seesaw, so people can check that out. We also have a frequently asked questions section on our district website if people want to peruse that. Transportation. So for students coming on site, we will be providing transportation, again, following the guidance in a safe way. And parents and families and students will receive transportation information just like any other year. Those postcards will be mailed home about a week before school starts. So about a week before that February 1st start date for pre-kindergarten 4-year-olds and kindergarten. All right. Everyone's asking about COVID testing and vaccination and our protective equipment. So we want everyone to know that staff who are working on site will be offered bi-weekly COVID tests right here at school. So our nursing and health staff have been trained on how to administer and submit these tests, and we will be receiving the supplies of the test in order to provide those. Of course, anyone in Minnesota can order that free Vault test from the Vault website, and staff could do that as well in addition, if they so choose. Vaccination. So in the state of Minnesota, each county's public health, they are working with their own plans, right? And so Columbia Heights Public Schools, we are in Anoka County. So we're working very closely with Anoka County on guidance and rolling out of vaccination. So exciting news that our qualified school nurse staff are currently in the process of being trained and vaccinated. So as you know, it takes a few weeks between dose 1 and dose 2. And the reason that is important is because once that process is over, and then we will be able to receive vaccinations here on site, and those trained staff will be able to provide staff who are working on site with vaccinations right here. I get asked a lot, when is that going to happen? When is that going to happen? And as soon as I know, and as soon as our COVID coordinator knows, we will let people know. We asked that question as well. We're all anticipating that day. PPE, we're actually working with the National Guard, has been called out to help deliver protective equipment. So this week, this Thursday, we'll be getting our next supply in of masks. Masks are for students and staff, and also staff face shields will be coming. And then just want to make sure everyone knows that we do have additional cleaning and additional safety measures in place at each school. All right, and just a reminder that we are following very carefully the guidance from the Department of Education and the Department of Health. Our learning model is approved and supported by the Department of Education and our regional support team, which includes public health officials. Columbia Heights Public Schools, we are required to follow that guidance from both of those organizations. We have regular guidance that comes to us, regular updates. Anything that's changed, we are informed and on top of it. So as I mentioned previously, we have those weekly meetings that really help navigate this process. Lastly, this year, we just want to always remind everyone, it's a journey. It's a learning, it's new learning for all of us. So we are on a journey. We're going to start small with quarter 3, with moving our elementary to a 4-day-a-week hybrid. And we will be reflecting and meeting and as we learn to really hone in on what we can do, continue to do better. If there are things that we need to change and amend. That's what this whole year has been about, is learning how to do school in this new way, where we're keeping folks safe and providing those connections, relationships with our students and families, and high quality education. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen for questions.
All right, thank you so much for that. That was thorough, and I appreciate the just the learner's attitude about this whole process. We're learning as we go as well, trying to make the best decisions we can for our students and staff. Having said that, who has questions?
Can I start with?
All right, Lorian.
Just a couple things. One, I will comment, like Natty said, I appreciate the kind of the growth mindset of this plan and the process. And also the collaboration that everybody has done with the teachers and the unions and the representatives and from buildings and ground staff to everybody's support team. So I appreciate the real collaboration that has happened throughout this and the plan to move forward. So thank you for that. What do parents do if they filled out the survey and said, yeah, I want my kid to go back, and then decided that no, they don't, or maybe they said that they would choose Heights from Home for quarter 3. Now seeing this plan, they're like, I think we want to do this. How do they communicate their change of mind?
Thank you for that question. So any question that parents have about their their child, they should go to their teacher or their principal. And I'll just let you know that because of our survey data, we put out a survey and then made phone calls to families who weren't able to respond to that survey. So over a process of several weeks, really calling and getting that data to see who would choose which side. So through many of those phone calls, there were conversations about what it might look like to help guide that decision. But the class rosters are set right now for quarter 3. And so the likelihood that a response from the school might be, we have to see if there's room in that class, whether it's Heights from Home class or in-person class. Particularly those in-person classes where we need to keep that physical distancing. So that may be the response is, let me look at that individual class, that individual grade level to see if there's room, if that's a possibility. Is what the response that they would get.
And I assume that has to do with staffing, right? Staffing availability, numbers of kids, and okay. Just to help understand.
Right, so
Yep.
trying to maintain small groups on camp for those on-site learners, and then yes, the number of available, let's say, 3rd grade teachers at that time. So of course, teachers who we are providing accommodations and they can work from home, those will be, some of the teachers that are teaching from home, that's why. So there's a whole host of reasons, but yes.
Okay.
Staff capacity.
Did you have more questions, Lauren?
Yep, that was it for me.
All right.
Thank you.
Questions from others? Mary, I see your hand.
Thank you. Thank you for the detailed presentation. I appreciate a lot of the details. that you had. I had two questions. You talked a little bit about the parents and how hard I think your team worked to follow up and get survey results. Can you tell us what the survey, like what our numbers were for how many people completed the survey, like what the percentage was?
Yeah, certainly.
The unmute reflex.
Supposed to do that. I used to do that. So I don't have the number in front of me, but I can tell you that it was about 98% we got responses to, and then some families were emailed, called again, perhaps used the language line or an interpreter. In some cases, in some schools, it was 100%, down to about 98% or around there. So the vast majority were communicated with. The staff worked so hard and spent numerous hours getting that information.
Well, that's an incredibly high success rate in compliance. So kudos to the team for all of your hard work to reach out to families to see what their preferences were. I think my only other question, I think you answered a lot of my questions in your presentation, so I appreciate that. The only other question I had is around the quarantine plans. Is that something that families can expect that they'll get from their schools directly, or is there another place they should be looking for that information?
If I can, Director Tuckrell is on the Zoom, if you're able to. I know you had a more recent conversation with school-based staff, because folks, this pandemic changes things every single day, right? And so I think that Director Tuckrell would have a more updated information than I might at this point.
Good evening, Chair Severson, members of the board. We were able to meet with staff today and have a conversation. And a lot of schools are coming up with a COVID plan that they're going to be sharing out. And I talked to Principal Kuhlman today. He's going to be having a meeting with staff. So a lot of communication is going to be happening as we go in the next couple weeks and as we keep getting new guidance, right, as things go on. So quarantine is part of it. Other safety protocols that will be taking place in the classroom will be part of that. So they will be sharing a lot of detailed information in the next few weeks, especially to the pre-K and kindergarten families that will be coming on site.
Awesome, thank you so much.
All right, other questions? Just scrolling here, give me a sec. All right, I think we've exhausted our questions. Given the universe of questions that's out there for all of us, I think that's kind of the hard part about this time is there's an endless stream of questions because there's an endless stream of opportunities before us. We normally don't have this many forks in the road as we make decisions. So I appreciate the flexibility, but also offering a plan.
Yeah, and just a reminder, we really do welcome those questions and that, the input that we've gotten and the collaboration, but also those questions. It's really important in this new step that we're taking.
All right. We will go on to the next item, which is the discontinuance of programs and position resolution, and that's Superintendent Stenvik and Directors Bennett and Hennekins.
Chair Severson, members of the board, Superintendent Stenvik. Tonight we're going to present to you as an information item the annual resolution for discontinuance of programs and positions. We do this every single year, so tonight's the information item. It'll be brought forward on the 26th as an action item. But we wanted to go through what we look at as we start the staffing process. So once this resolution is approved, it would start administration looking at those efficiencies. So I'm going to share the resolution draft right now. So it's a resolution directing the administration to make recommendations for reductions in programs and positions and reasons therefore. This year, we looked at the COVID-19 pandemic has brought unforeseen expenditures that were not covered by CARES Act funding. The special education cost subsidy has grown over the last 5 years, requiring the school district's general fund to cover over $5.6 million for this obligation. The English Learner Cross subsidy continues to be a yearly approximate about 0.8 million out of the general fund to help cover this obligation. The school district's budget is based on declining projected enrollment. The financial condition of the school district is dependent on federal, state, and local revenues, and these have not been sufficient to cover the total cost of ownership. We are looking at transportation costs to increase. And so really we take all those into consideration as we have an obligation to balance the school district budget. So we will come forward in 2 weeks to present this as an action item. And again, it's an annual resolution. It just starts administration looking at those efficiencies that we do each school year. So we'll answer any questions you have.
All right, thanks. Questions?
Make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to reiterate what Director Bennett said, I mean, this is something that we're looking at doing every year as we have to be fiscally responsible and have a finite number of funds and amount of funds that we can use, and have to make good decisions on the use of those funds and find efficiencies where we can. And so this is the board directing the administration to look at where we can be more efficient to be the best stewards of the dollars that we have available.
Agreed. The state doesn't allow school districts to operate in a long-term deficit. And so we have to maintain a budget that can meet those needs. We do not want statutory operating debt. That's like a curse word in education. So we can talk more about that. But any other questions? All right, we'll move on. Oh, get excited. We're back. Director Henneken's boiler plant bids. Come on now.
Chair Severson, members of the board, Superintendent Stenbeck. Natty, you got me all screwed up with that intro.
They're my favorite.
Boiler plant, Valley View Elementary boiler plant. This is something that I brought to the board earlier when I asked for permission to solicit bids. I'm going to draw on that a little bit, but just to give you a little bit brief. Valley View Elementary currently is heated from Columbia Academy next door. We have a single pipe that goes across to feed steam to that building to heat that building. We had a similar scenario up here at the high school, which was feeding Highland Elementary, and then in the winter, we had the steam line burst, and we're luckily the timing of everything. I mean, it was 30 some degrees outside, so it was cold. We needed heat, but the timing of it allowed for us to make the repairs, emergency repairs, where we didn't have to, keep kids out of school, but. That is the potential that we're dealing with at Columbia Academy and Valley View Elementary. So just like we did with Highland Elementary, we're going to be implementing a boiler plant within the building. And on December 15th, we had a bid opening. And in your board pack, I had the results with the letter of recommendation from Hallberg Engineering, the company that we worked with on design. The specs for the bid proposals, and we had a low responsible bidder from Boiler Services for $379,000. So at the next board meeting, I'll be bringing this forward as an action item to approve and move forward with that project so that we can implement a new boiler plant at Valley View Elementary. This will be funded through the capital projects levy. Any questions?
Any questions? All right, we will move on to window bids.
Just as exciting. Chair Severson, members of the board, and Superintendent Stenbeck, We have North Park Elementary window replacement project. I know that we've had a lot of projects at North Park Elementary recently, and I think I've said this many times that we we have a plan, a deferred maintenance plan, and with the bond referendum project, we intended to combine funds with that project, long-term facility maintenance dollar funds, but those long-term facility maintenance dollars are limited per year, and so we couldn't complete everything that we wanted to within the 18 months that we were really heavy into that building, and so we have I don't know, close to half of the windows left in the building that are still original to the building, so 1960s single pane windows. And the project is to replace those. So we had a bid opening on January 7th. And again, in your packet, we had the letter of recommendation from Kraus Anderson is the company that we're working with again on this project. And the low bid on this project was from Val Pro Windows for $221,665. And again, long-term facility maintenance dollars. We'll be funding this project. We're very happy with this bid, actually, like the Valley View Elementary boiler plant. They both have come in below what our anticipated costs coming into the project. So definitely a benefit for us right now, given our limited dollars. So this will come as an action item at the next board meeting.
All right, question on the windows.
I have a question.
Lorian.
I guess this relates to the previous topic too, but specifically related to the windows. Are you hearing at all that there are any product or material delays due to COVID, so that would impact our timeline at all?
Good question. We are staying in tune to that. That is a very, very high concern. Actually, right now, lead time on the windows is significantly less than it was when we did the Valley View windows last summer. So they've recovered some from that, at least in these plants. Wausau windows are the windows that we have been implementing in these projects. And our lead time right now is about 12 weeks. And it was as high as 18 to 20 last summer. So we've recovered some there. So we feel pretty good about where we're at with that lead time now, and where we're at with our process here. I think we'll be sitting pretty good.
Thank you.
Good question. Forget about things like that. Other questions? All right. Well, unfortunately, we don't have the trifecta with a roof bid, but we will move on to the school board subcommittee on community engagement.
Which is equally as exciting
It
as
is. It's very
roof
exciting.
and
I do
window
love
bids are
community
really
engagement.
Molly and I have a few things to present on kind of a follow-up from our most recent subcommittee on community engagement. So a couple things. We talked previously at a meeting and then came back to the committee on how do we best manage and define the process for our community engagement, like listening sessions or community engagement sessions that we've been doing virtually. And so the Community Engagement Committee has come up with kind of like an agenda or a plan of action for those meetings for all board members, and Molly was going to share that.
Yeah, and I apologize that I don't have it for you guys to see. I don't know that it would be, I've never shared a screen, let's just say that. I will, however, send this on to Dawn so that she can put it in our board packets for everyone to review before the next meeting, and then we can share it at the following one. So we're just trying to get these quarterly community engagement sessions to be somewhat uniform so people can know what to expect, and also just to keep the board members on track so that we touch base on any pertinent areas of consideration for the community members and parents that are listening in. So we're going to start with a welcome and introduction by board members. Board members would discuss the role of a board member, state the purpose of the Community Engagement Committee, and also the purpose of the community engagement session, as well as reminders about data privacy. So that would kind of be how we set the tone for each meeting, just letting people know why we're there. Then we would move on to updates, news, and highlights from Columbia Heights Public Schools, kind of just trying to share some of those good stories. I know we do Heights highlights or Highlander highlights during the board meetings, but I know everybody doesn't, always listen to that. So just another opportunity to share some of the good things going on. Moving on, we would kind of touch base on each of the areas of our education. So starting with like community education and early childhood, and then elementary updates, kind of going through each school. Our purpose on this would really to be giving each of the parents an opportunity to, if they're there for a question or seeking information, that we really kind of hone in on those individual school areas. And then of course, moving on to Columbia Academy updates and questions, and then Columbia Heights High School updates and questions. We also discussed putting an agenda or a tab on there for activities, just so we're continuing to talk about what's going on, making sure our, younger learners know about the opportunities coming up and all of that. And then lastly, we would talk about community events and news in the community. So whether or not there's anything from the cities, or, Columbia Heights, Fridley, Hilltop, or if there's just anything anyone wants to touch base on, if it's school related or not. And that's about it. We did also talk about, I think, Lauren, are you going to cover the signing up for the meetings? Yep. And how we'll do? Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So, as Molly said, really trying to provide a continuity in each meeting and help, so it's not just a bunch of people sitting in a room wondering who's going to say and what they're going to say. The Community Engagement Committee subcommittee has come up with some meeting dates and times. Specifically, the next meeting would be February 23rd from 5:45 to 6:45 virtually. The committee has recommended that Molly and I will do that listening session, just so that we can see how it works and the agenda and kind of what we've put together as committee members. And then May 11th from 5:45 to 6:45. And at our next meeting, if we could have people sign up for that session. And then we've thought about, the committee would also like to do a meeting in August and then another one in November, with those dates to be determined kind of as we look at the next academic year calendar, kind of establishing August, November, and then into the next calendar year with the new updated calendar. And then we can sign up for those meetings when that has been determined. We wanted to get an idea of what is also happening in the calendar wise, so that we're not scheduling these meetings when there's other things going on.
I just want to reiterate that the purpose of this agenda is not to keep everything rigid. It's just so that we're really making sure to give everyone an opportunity. Mm-hmm. So it can certainly ebb and flow. If people come with a certain concern and we talk about that more, that's fine. We're not trying to limit it. We're just trying to make sure that we expand it to all areas.
So that's our update from our committee. And like I said, our ask would be at the next meeting, if we could have some kind of an approval, if you will, of Molly and I doing the next meeting in February, and then have some volunteers, 2 volunteers for the meeting in May.
So we'll put this on then as an action item for our next board meeting, or is this not necessarily an action item? This is something we could decide on at our work session next week. I think we've signed up for them that way in the past.
Yep, I was going to call on Dawn that I believe in the past it's been kind of a sign-up process and not action taken. Is that correct, Dawn?
Correct.
Okay.
No motion needed. Okay, so we
then we don't have to do it at the next meeting. I think if everybody's okay, with Molly and I doing the February meeting, and then if we can get some volunteers for the May meeting.
Well, Superintendent Stenvik and I can discuss the upcoming meeting agendas and how tight they are and try to find a good spot for them.
Perfect.
Okay. Any questions from other board members?
Can I just mention the meeting times for the next 2 are before regularly scheduled board meetings, just so people are aware of that. And then, oh gosh, I'm sorry, I had something else and I forgot. That's all. I'm good.
All right, Mary, I saw that hand go up.
Yeah, one thing I was just curious about is how are we letting families know in the community that this is coming up? Are we, pushing it on our social media and vice versa, or not vice versa, but in all those different ways, or just curious about that.
Yeah, I think we would fall back on the same method that we have asked the administration to help with us communicate out the previous community engagement sessions, which did have a good showing at those through emails and the social media.
We'll coordinate with Superintendent Stenvick to direct her staff to, and as she feels would be most helpful. Is that good? You, Lori and Molly, you guys can coordinate with Superintendent Stenvick? All right, great.
Thank you.
Other questions? It's a good question about advertising. How do we let people know what's happening? All right, hearing none, we will move on to our action items. Previously discussed is the high school fax room. Director Hannekins.
Thank you, Chair Severson, members of the board, and Superintendent Stenvick. So previous school board meeting, I presented on the high school fax room project, and we had opened up bids on December 8th, and we had the bid tabulations letter that presented at the previous meeting, along with the letter of recommendation moving forward with Construction Results Corporation for $219,690. And this is a long-term facility maintenance project. And as talked about and discussed in the last meeting, heavily needed, as in a lot of what's in that space is original, and it's from the cabinetry to the HVAC system that really needs to be updated in that space. And this would be summer project. It would begin right in the start of the summer, and of course we have summer academy and other summer programming that we're in discussion with them where that's going to be, and we'll have to coordinate, of course, so there'll be coordination happening, so this evening seeking approval to move forward with that project.
All right, can I get a motion on that?
So moved.
Laura, a second?
Second.
Mary, so on the second. Okay, discussion.
I have a question.
Yep, Lorian.
Director Hennekins, kind of the same question as before. This one actually causes me more concern, as I've had professionally struggles with appliance time turnaround due to COVID. So is that something that you're keeping track of and aware of, is the very long lead time for appliances?
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. Yes, appliances are a little bit more of a struggle. You have your microwaves or the stoves or the refrigerator, and we'll have a washer and dryer with this. So we actually just had a meeting on this yesterday to discuss moving forward with that, because we are purchasing the appliances separate from the bid process. So I have our buildings and grounds manager actively working on making sure that we can get our appliances, because we are as well concerned about that. And he's like, well, what if they come early? Some of them come early. I'm like, great, we'll store them. So we want to make sure we have them.
That would be a good problem to have. And testing them. My recommendation is testing them as soon as you receive them. May have had some problems with some appliances coming, maybe not fully operational.
Oh, man. All the things you learn on a school board. All right, more questions besides appliance lead times. I tried to buy a couch too. Wow, that was crazy. Who knew? All right, hearing none. We'll have a roll call vote on the high school fax room. Laura.
Lewis.
Aye.
Mueller.
Aye.
Granlund.
Aye.
Severson.
Aye.
Palmer. Aye.
Motion carries. All right, we will move on to the amended authorization of aid anticipating certificates resolution. Wow, that's a complicated name to say out loud. I'm going to go ahead and read the resolution, and then I'll ask for a motion to move this forward. And this is the title, believe it or not. Resolution relating to amending resolution relating to 1,075,000 general obligation aid anticipation certificates of indebtedness, Series 2021A, authorizing the issuance, establishing the terms thereof, and authorizing the Director of Finance and Operations of Superintendent to award the sale thereof and to take such action and execute all documents necessary to accomplish said award and sale. That was the title. Now I'll go on to read the resolution. Be it resolved by the Public School Board, the Board of Independent School District Number 13, Columbia Heights Public Schools, Minnesota, the District of, as follows. By resolution duly adopted on December 15th, 2020, entitled Resolution Regulating to Amending Resolution Relating to 1,075,000 General Obligation Aid Anticipation Certificates of Indebtedness, Series 2021A, authorizing the Director of Finance and Operations and Superintendent to award the sale thereof and to take such action and execute all documents necessary to accomplish said award and sale. The authorizing resolution, this board authorizes, is that meant to be authorized issuance? Is that meant to be the issuance and sale? So we see a typo there. And sale of its 2021A General Obligation Aid Anticipation Certificate, Series 2021A. The following modification to the authorizing resolution is necessary. It is hereby found, determined, and declared as follows. A, that the following language be inserted. Section 6, the State Credit Enhancement Program. A, the district hereby covenants and obligates itself to notify the Commissioner of Education of a potential default in the payment of principal and interest on the certificates and to use the provisions of Minnesota Statute Section 126C.55 to guarantee payment of the principal and interest of the certificates when due. The district further covenants to deposit with the registrar or any successor paying agent 3 days prior to the date on which a payment is due in an amount sufficient to make the payment or to notify the Commissioner of Education that it will be unable to make all or a portion of that payment. The registrar for the certificates is authorized and directed to notify the Commissioner of Education if it becomes aware of a potential default in the payment of principal or interest on the certificates, or if on the day two business days prior to the date of payment is due on the certificates, there are insufficient funds to make the payment on deposits with the registrar. The district understands that as a result of its covenant to be bound by the provision of Minnesota Statute Section 26C.55, the provisions of that section shall be binding as long as any certificates of this issue remain outstanding. B, the district further covenants to comply with all procedures now and hereafter established by the Department of Minnesota and budget and education of the state of Minnesota pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 126C.55, subdivision 2C, and otherwise to take such actions as necessary to comply with that section. The chair, clerk, superintendent, or business manager is authorized to execute any applicable Minnesota Department of Education forms. And 3, such modification to the authorizing resolution is hereby approved except as expressly modified hereby, and the authorizing resolution shall remain in full force and effect. With the change in the typo from authorizing the bid under section 1, authorize the bid and issuance, can we have a motion to move this forward?
So moved.
Lorian, second?
Second.
Laura, all right. Discussion.
Can I just make a comment?
Yep.
We've talked about this at previous meetings, and that that we're seeking this aid because of the timing of funding that's received and expenses that are going out. And so the timing issue has resulted in the need for this type of funding.
Yeah, if you're watching this at home and you haven't seen subsequent meetings, there's an expected delay in the way the state will fund the education, which could create a short-term cash flow issue.
As well as the timing of the CARES funding related to the expenses.
All right, any further questions? All right, a roll call vote, please.
Lewis,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
Granlund,
Aye.
Severson,
Aye.
Palmer, aye.
All right, resolution passes. We will move on to closed session. So if you are watching on Zoom, we'll be ending our Zoom broadcast right now. Did we decide, will it pop back up, or will it be available for recording later as we close the session?
Thank you.
State statute, sorry. We had closed sessions for negotiations pursuant to, in accordance with Minnesota State Statute 13D.03. So now we return to open session at 9:12 p.m. and we'll move on to our next item, which is board topics. And I'll get us started to remind you that in your board packet, you had information about the National School Board Association. And as we heard from Superintendent Stenvik, it looks like we easily have enough money for whoever wants to attend that virtually to be able to go, which is a unique opportunity. There is something to the experience, and Mary, kind of to give you a little background, is our board is on a rotation where 2 members go every third year, and there's like a rotation to the different places. Me and Laura were all set to go to Chicago early last April, but that obviously got quite upset by COVID. And so this year they're going to do the virtual option, and I've had a lot of good learning. I went to Denver in my first term and learned a lot. Hall and I were able to go and do that, and so I think they're useful if people want to go, but we do need to let Dawn know in the next week, I think, or so. Was the deadline like the 19th, I want to say, or something like that? She was asking for, or is that when registration opens? Dawn, are you on there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'll have to look that up again and find out, put it in the update.
Okay, I remember thinking, oh, that date's coming quickly. I should make a decision. But I'll tell you, I will intend to go. So you can put me down. I don't know if anyone else wants to come along. Please let Superintendent Stenvik and Dawn know what you would like to do.
I will be attending. I've already taken the time off.
Okay.
So I can sit in front of the computer for 4 days.
NSBA, Laura?
Yes.
I would like to attend.
And you don't have to publicly declare your intention right now. You can look at your regular life and work schedules too, and then let them know. So, and it looks like Superintendent
If I
Stenvik.
could just clarify, the reason why, it is virtual nature, therefore there are no travel costs or room, lodging costs. And so this is one unique opportunity for the board members costing it out.
Yep.
Just to clarify.
And this does fall, we can attend virtual sessions together according to open meeting laws, as long as we're not having ongoing discussions about our board functions and different things like that, so.
Good point.
Yep. All right, any other board topics out there? All right, hearing none, we will adjourn this meeting at 9:15 p.m.